All right, guys, in this one, we're going to be moving on to the white balance section of the develop panel over here. If you remember from my video on RAW versus JPEG, we have this preset area, and if you're shooting a RAW file, you have the ability to select these different presets, which are just like the ones in your camera, most likely. You have daylight, cloudy, shade, tungsten, fluorescent flash. If you have a nicer camera, you'll find that your white balance section of the camera has these exact settings, and if you're shooting RAW, you can adjust it after the fact. In my case, I shoot a Nikon camera, and I am almost always on auto white balance. I find that Nikon does a great job getting the white balance right on their cameras. It's always looks great to me. I am severely colorblind, so using color is always really hard for me. So I tend to trust the camera that it gets it right, and hey, it looks good to me. Other people say my photos look good, so that's enough for me to know that I tend to get it right. The other thing that can be helpful too is this eyedropper tool. So one of the things you can use if you're like shooting people, or you have like a more of a formal portrait session, the first image, you might have someone hold up one of those gray cards. It's like, actually, let me see if I can find. So here's an example. You'll find these gray cards that people will use when they take photos. They'll have their model hold up the card, and then in the first image, it shows them holding the card, and you can use this eyedropper tool to click the card, and it will automatically set your white balance. So how you can use this eyedropper is essentially you want to find something that's white in your photo, or something that should be completely white, or like a neutral gray, and then if you click on it, it'll adjust the white balance accordingly. So I'm going to try to find a part in the clouds that should be pretty white, and just click it. You can see it didn't really change it much because I had the white balance set to auto, and the camera did a good job of getting it right the first time, so not much changed. But if I find a darker gray color, it's probably going to warm it up a bit when I click it. So I try here. See, the photo got a little bit warmer. So you can try to experiment with the eyedropper if you want to try to set your white balance that way. Or you can just use the sliders directly. You know, if you want to cool things off a bit, you set the temperature more to the cool side. If you find your photo's just a little bit too cool, you might want to warm it up a little bit. I'm finding when I'm touching these sliders here, I'm only making small adjustments. I'm not making anything too major. I'm not like shifting way down or something like that. You know, the camera tends to get it right the first time, and then I tend to maybe like, oh, it's a little bit warmer for my taste. I'm just going to cool it off just a touch, and I might shift it down. This number right here is the Kelvin setting. It's like a temperature setting. And you'll notice if you hover over these numbers, and this goes for pretty much anything here in this panel, you get like a slider here, and if you click on the number and drag left or right, you can see it moves the numbers that way. This isn't as accurate as just clicking the slider here and making tiny adjustments yourself. So again, double clicking the slider will set it back to the default. And that's white balance. Setting the color, getting that right the first time, it's one of the first things I do when I edit a photo. Generally, you know, you set your white balance in camera, and it's going to be the same for a lot of the photos that you take. So hopefully you're not having to make too many adjustments here. And again, if you're doing portraits, something like that, I recommend getting one of those gray cards, and you have your model hold it up on the first photo. You just get your eyedropper, you click the gray card, and it automatically sets the white balance for you. So that's white balance. That's pretty handy tool there for getting the color right. One of the more important parts of editing, and that eyedropper is a lifesaver for someone like me who has issues with seeing colors accurately. So that's white balance. See you guys in the next one, where we start going through the tone section. Cheers.